Come for Freddie Prinze Jr., Tyrese Gibson, and Hugh Grant, and stay for Ryder Strong from Who wasn't fawning over Freddie Prinze Jr. when he was inWay back in the 90s. Keanu held big roles in popular movies like Keanu clearly ages like a fine wine because, I mean, just look at that jawline. It hasn't changed a bit. We fell in love with him in his movies decades ago, and kept on falling for him in his John Wick films. Might I add, the man can rock a NY hairstyle. If you haven't seen him in Netflix's a rapper, singer, and an actor, Tyrese was slaying the game in the 90s. And on top of that, he couldn't help but win hearts with that perfect smile. Yep, Tyrese is still the cutest. He's since become an author and has nabbed big roles in No one can ever forget Paul as Josh in Nowadays. We know Paul as Ant-Man. Who else goes from 90s heartthrob to superhero in one lifetime? The dude really has got some fabulous genes. Let's be real, every single woman in the 90s imagined themselves walking down the aisle as George Clooney waited for them at the altar. In this fantasy, he was also a doctor. Thanks. How is this man 60 years old and still such a hottie? Didn't know I had a thing for older guys until right now. There wasn't anybody who we can confirm that LL Cool J is still a dreamboat and still a big name in Hollywood. Now he's known for his longtime role As you're probably well aware. James played Dawson on Still Cute. And James hasn't stopped working. Most recently, he had a role on the hit show Andrew Stole the Hearts of the Who didn't have a crush on Ryder's character, Sean Hunter. On Ryder played Uncle Sean on Will is still a super famous actor in Hollywood and is married to Jada Pinkett Smith, with whom he has 2 children, Jaden and Willow. As for his acting career, Will starred as Genie in 2019's live-action Ryan's Bad Boy turned good guy role in the 90s. Hugh and his Baby Blues were busy starring in classic rom-coms like Hugh is still a fixture in Hollywood. Most recently, you probably watched him on HBO's psychological thriller series Is There a Better Artifact from the 90s than the long hair and center part that JGL rocked on. Speaking of good throwback hair, Justin was another teen idol with a noteworthy, mane, if you can call it that. Being a member of NSYNC made JT a household name, and his 3-year-long relationship with Britney Spears only added to his superstar status. JT is still a big pop star, but he's gone a bit folksy. See, his 2018 studio album Mark Paul is still very much doing the TV thing, and has been on shows like Back in the Day. Jared fulfilled many bad boy fantasies thanks to his role as Jordan Catalano on Jared, whose face literally hasn't aged at all. I need to know his skincare routine. Went very fashion and is now a staple on the Met Gala red carpet and in Gucci ads. He's also the lead singer of the rock band 30 Seconds to Mars and is still acting. You may have heard that he played the Joker in a little movie called If You Were Attracted to Men and had a pulse in the 90s. There was little to no chance that you weren't into Leo, who starred in both Ricky Was Hot in the 90s. Mostly thanks to his worldwide hit As You Can See, Ricky has kept it tight. Besides remaining very good looking, which, well done, mate, he's still releasing new music. He's dabbled in acting too. Recently starring in the 2nd season of Brendan was a big deal in the 90s, having landed starring roles in Obviously. I can't mention NSYNC without bringing up their rival 90s boy band, the Backstreet Boys, and their resident hottie, Nick Carter. Nick. Not only is Nick still rocking the 90s hair gel, but he's also still touring and releasing new-ish music with the Backstreet Boys. Some things never change. If I'm going to mention Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, you know I've also gotta mention 98 Degrees, specifically, Because of You, frontman, Nick. One could argue that Nick got even more famous in the 2000s because of Mario has pivoted from acting to hosting and has been an anchor on while some Mr. Jackson starred in Showtimes in his heyday. Everything about Usher was the definition of sex appeal. His voice, his songs, his abs. Just kidding. The heyday framework does not apply to Usher as he's still sexy as hell. His sexy voice and sexy abs are still making music and performing at music festivals. Lucky us. The best thing about this band of brothers was that there were enough of them for you and your BFFs to each have your own favorite. Much like many of the other 90s musicians on this list, these 3 are still performing together as a band. And I'm kinda shook by this pick, not gonna lie. If Mario Lopez's AC Slater wasn't your kinda jock, the 90s also provided us with Joey's role as Joey Russo, the baseball-playing hottie on from 2010 to 2015. Joey starred on the show. Did you really think that there was only going to be one Jason? Has been starring in TV shows, like Scott's once rebellious turned responsible character Bailey Salinger in like many other 90s leading men. Scott is still working in television and has been on shows like Between, starring as a sexy musician on with truly no idea what's happening fashion-wise in this photo. But the year was 1990 and frankly, who am I to judge? I was wearing oversized SeaWorld t-shirts and calling it personal style at the time. Who else do you know that could pull off a messy low ponytail at the Academy Awards? Exactly. Oh, this? Just Brian Austin Green in the Hands Up if you watched Omar as A. Still Dreamy, and B. About to star in Stars, upcoming Devon Sawa in Speaking Head. Speaking Head, put me in a time machine to 1994 and hang this on my bedroom wall. I mean, we all know what Matt Damon currently looks like, right? He's still famous. He's in everything. He's everywhere. Moving on. Speaking of hot Matts, here's Matt Dillon, star of 90s classics like Based on This Photo. Matt now spends most of his time being contemplative. But he's also starring in the upcoming Peter Dinklage film, still performing, and still a heartthrob with impeccable fashion.